This is ASMR Kurt, and in today's video I would like to talk to you about what I have been watching and listening to over the weekend. This weekend it was been so hot here in the UK, really hot, and I haven't really felt like going out much, so I've watched a lot of TV. And on a weekend as well, I like to listen to a lot of my podcasts as well, because that's when I have more time. So I'd like to talk to you about what I watched. I actually watched quite a lot of movies, so much so that I probably gave myself a headache from just too much screen time. Yeah, I do that often, and too much scrolling on my phone as well, so I have to just take a break every now and then. So the first movie I watched on Friday night was Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane from 1962. This movie's getting really old now, but it's amazing. I haven't seen it for many years, probably since I was at university, and I rented the DVD from there. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is directed by Robert Aldrich and stars Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, and it's about a pair of child actors or child performers who grow up together, and due to an unfortunate accident, Jane, the Bette Davis character, now has to look after her disabled sister, and the disabled sister is played by Joan Crawford. The film is very dark. Sometimes it's kind of darkly comic, but it's very dark. It's shot in black and white. And I won't talk too much about it, but basically, the relationship between Bette Davis's character, Baby Jane, and her sister, who's disabled, is very toxic and abusive, and it becomes this kind of really dark psychological thriller. It's a brilliant film. It's really well directed, and the performances are amazing. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford are amazing, and it's really, really creepy. It's one of those movies that haunts you for a few days afterwards, and you can't stop thinking about it. And it's great. So that's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I really recommend it. Okay, so the other movie that I watched on Saturday night was an amazing movie called Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. This is a Japanese movie. I love Japanese movies and East Asian movies. I wrote my uni dissertation on East Asian cinema, and I've never been to Japan, but I'd love to go one day. But I love lots of Japanese and Korean cinema, although I hadn't watched anything new lately. I saw this movie was on a on-demand service, and so I watched it, and it's an amazing film. It's basically like a time travel movie. Sorry, my mouth's getting really dry. It's so hot here, and I turned off my fan, so that obviously there's no distracting noise. So Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes is a time travel kind of comedy about a guy in a cafe who discovers that his monitor in his room above the cafe shows things 2 minutes into the future. So he starts experimenting with it and seeing how far he can get into the future, like using different, like multiple monitors, to create this sort of, is it the drone effect, where so that he can get further into the future. But it's just like, it's one of those movies that makes my head hurt. It scrambled my brain, but in a good way. It was so clever and mind-boggling, and funny in parts as well, really funny. And it's a really zippy film. And the amazing thing about this movie is that it was shot in one take. So it all takes place in this sort of one location. There's like an upstairs and a downstairs, but that's pretty much it. It all took place in one shot, and it was shot on an iPhone, because you saw clips of them making it during the credits at the end. So that was amazing. So if you get the chance to watch Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes on an on-demand service, or you can buy the DVD. I think I'm definitely going to buy the DVD. I still like buying physical media every so often, if I really want to own the movie, and I think I'd like to buy that one day. So I really recommend it. The next movie I watched was when I visited my parents, and we needed something generic and clean to watch. So we ended up watching one of those Netflix movies, and the one that we chose was Wedding Season. So this was about this is about a lady who is of Indian descent in New York, and in order to sort of please her parents, she has to pretend that she's in a relationship with another guy, and go to various events during wedding season. It's a classic rom-com premise, and the actors were really good. I love all the actors in it, and it was very colourful, but it kind of had the same plot as a lot of other Netflix movies in terms of romantic comedies. It's will they, won't they? It's they will. And I don't know, these Netflix movies sort of all look the same in a way. You kind of know what you're going to get, and it wasn't anything new. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. It was just okay. That's what I find a lot of these Netflix movies are like, and I've been scrolling past a few lately, and it's I don't know if I've seen that, because they all look the same. But a lot of the times I will have seen the movie, but it's just because they're all the same. But we always go for those one of my parents, because they're clean and easy to watch. What can you do? But I am an absolute sucker for those Netflix Christmas movies, like a Night Before Christmas, or The Christmas Wedding, or whatever the fuck they're called. The punnier the title, the Christmas title, the better, really. The title always gets me. Yeah, The Holiday. I mean, I'm an absolute sucker for those. They are, charming, and they pass the time and get you in the Christmas mood, And every now and then there'll be an actually good one as well, and not just a just okay one. Most of the time they just churn them out, and they're just okay. Okay, so that's it. The other movie that we watched when I was visiting my parents was The Notebook. My mum hadn't seen The Notebook, and I'd seen that again many years ago, and I liked it. It was fine. I know some people love that movie, and I watched it again, and I enjoyed it again. I think the performances, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, and they help you get through it, because again it has some romantic rom-com cliches in it, like, you know, the unanswered letters and that kind of thing, and it does deliberately pull at your heartstrings, but you know, that's what movies are for, and it's, you know, it's fine, and it's really charmingly done and beautifully shot. It kind of looks like an old movie from the 50s. So yeah, we watched The Notebook. I'm sure you're familiar with it. If you know, would I recommend it? Yeah, if you've not seen The Notebook, I'd recommend it. Yeah. Let me know what you think of these movies, if you've seen them as well. I'd love to know in the comments what you think of this. So I think that's it for the movies that I've seen. In terms of TV shows, I haven't really had time to watch a lot of TV shows, but I have been watching season 2 of Demon Slayer, which is an anime. I went to Comic-Con recently, as I've said in many of my videos, and I had a great time, and I may or may not have cosplayed as a character from Demon Slayer, that's all I'll say. But I love that show. I got completely hooked on it, and season 2 is very different to season 1. It's sort of seems to have got darker and gone into a different territory. But yeah, Demon Slayer, I really enjoy it. It's kind of dark and can be gory and funny. It's a real mixture, but it's very beautifully animated. In fact, my first experience of Demon Slayer was when I saw the movie Demon Slayer, the movie Mugen Train. When the movie theatres, the cinemas opened up in the UK in like summer 2021, and I was looking at what I wanted to see. It's like my first cinema trip since, you know, things opened up again. Nothing else was really interesting me, and I saw that this movie was out and it had got good reviews, even though I wasn't familiar with the show at that time. I just thought, I'm just going to give this a go, because it just seems really appealing and different, and I'm so glad I did. I didn't realise at the time that the movie actually happens between season 1 and season 2, so there is a continuity there, and I probably was confused by some of the things that were happening. However, I still enjoyed the movie a lot, and I think you don't have to necessarily watch season 1 of the series to enjoy it, but you will get more out of the movie if you have seen season 1. Anyway, so that was my first experience of Demon Slayer, and now I am on to season 2. I think I'm on like episode 3 or something like that. I can't quite remember. Yeah, but I love all the characters. Yeah, especially Inosuke. I think Inosuke might be my favorite character. He's just so crazy. I love him. He's great. Okay. So that was everything that I watched in terms of things that I listened to. I actually have a routine on a weekend, like where I love to listen to French language podcasts. I've been learning French for a couple of years now, on and off. And one of the ways that I try to learn is through listening to French language podcasts. And there's a couple that I listen to. But one of my favorites is, it's called Coffee Break French. Sorry, my mind went blank then. Coffee Break French. It's a podcast. I listen to it on Spotify. And it's a really great podcast for beginners and even like intermediate level. it's basically like a sort of show where they talk about different topics so that you can learn about French culture and learn new vocabulary as well. I find it really interesting and useful. For example, I listened to 2 episodes over the weekend, and the first episode that I listened to, they were talking about Switzerland, because there is a French-speaking population in Switzerland, and they were talking in French about Switzerland in general, like the culture, the watches, the financial, what Switzerland is famous for, basically, the financial markets and the banks and things, and a little bit about Swiss-French culture, and the tourism aspect as well. And the other episode, they were talking about some history. They were talking about Marie Antoinette, which was really interesting to hear a discussion about her in French, because actually a few weeks ago I watched the movie. Marie Antoinette, and yeah, great movie with Kirsten Dunst. Really recommend that one. It obviously plays a little bit fast and loose with history, but that's deliberate. But yeah, she was obviously a fascinating character, and they talked about like the French version of Let Them Eat Cake. I think it was like qui mange la brioche. If you're French, please feel free to correct me, or if you speak French better than I do, which is probably highly likely, feel free to correct me. But yeah, I think it was like qui mange la brioche, let them eat cake, which is, obviously the famous quote, which was attributed to her. Whether it's true or not is a whole other debate, but it was a very interesting, quick sort of history lesson about Marie Antoinette, and again, a good way to learn French. So, yeah, that's what I was listening to. The other podcast I've been absolutely addicted to recently is Unspooled, which is a podcast where the hosts, Paul and Amy, go through the AFI, the American Film Institute's top 100 movies in their opinion of all time. The list is really old, but I don't think it's changed since 2007 or 2008. And they randomly choose a film from this list of 100 greatest movies and talk about them. And the latest movies, which they talked about, which I got to on the podcast, were Double Indemnity, which is an old film noir, one of the best film noirs ever made, really, from the 1940s. Really good. What else? The Sixth Sense, which is obviously, most people know The Sixth Sense. If you haven't seen The Sixth Sense, then again, I recommend it. And yeah, I think that's Singing in the Rain as well. They talked about Singing in the Rain, which is actually I'm not a huge fan of movie musicals, but that's one of my favorite musicals. Singing in the Rain is great and obviously very iconic. And they talk about this behind the scenes stories behind those movies, what was going on at the time, and whether those movies actually deserve to be on that list. It's interesting because, personally, I don't know if I'd put The Sixth Sense in the top 100 movies of all time, but it certainly made an impact. So I think I'm going to wrap the video up there. That's a snippet of the things which I've been watching and listening to over the weekend. I am going to go and have a shower because I am sweating so much in this heat. I'm hoping that it clears up soon and cools down. I hope that wherever you are, you're staying cool, and hopefully I'll see you soon.